Morality. What is it? Is it of divine origin? Are only humans capable of its heights? Do animals lack the moral fiber? Let's explore what morality is. First of all, we can all see a moral code in animal behavior. That when a dog rushes to the aid of its fellow dog, we see a moral standard akin to the human one. We see a primal form of it, a rudimentary form of morality. Morality does not come from some ethereal place, from some divine origin. It is a social construct, or it's a construct that enables social behavior. Morality is capable only within higher life forms, that is, life forms that can project themselves upon the other, sympathizing with their plight, empathizing with them, identifying with them. It's a sort of projection of self upon another, which makes morality itself a selfish act. When we act on the behalf of another, we act only because the other is similar to us in some way. He reminds us of us. We associate ourselves with them. This eventually takes on the form of abstractions such as nation states, or God, or an ideal, or an ideology, where our identity is so intertwined with this abstraction that sacrificing ourselves for it becomes a matter of selfishness. The basic foundation of morality is the golden rule. The Hindus call it karma. It's a form of hedging your bets, if you will, a reputation. For instance, you come to the help of another, increasing your reputation as someone who helps others in order for that person to come to your aid when you need it. So it's a form of investing in the social fabric. Your reputation establishes how much help will be given to you in return, a reciprocity. So the golden rule says, I will help the other as I wish to be helped myself. Therefore, morality is a survival tactic. It's not magical, it's not mystical, it's not divine. It's a matter of survival. And it emerges within social creatures, such as man, and dog, and ape. It's a way of integrating within a social system. Eventually, it becomes encoded, abstracted into code, such as the Christian faith has. The Ten Commandments, for example, are encoded social rules of etiquette, of behavior, formed into a way of expression which the average uneducated, illiterate man of that time could understand. Thou shalt not. It's more than a divine decree, it's a threat. Thou shalt not, so that others shall not do upon you. And of course, most individuals being protected by the system today lack the self-awareness and the self-control to be rational about their behaviors, to consider the repercussions. So they have to be given a threat and a promise, such as the ones given by religion, in order for them to remain disciplined to the social rule. We see this social rule decaying every time the law and order weakens. All of a sudden, morality goes out the door, because we live in such a large social systems that we can't relate to the other. The other is usually somebody foreign, alien to us, somebody we don't even know personally. So we can't feel that moral obligation as would a dog to his own member of his own group, or in earlier times a tribal within tribal systems where you knew everybody within the tribe, and so your obligation to be helpful towards them and polite and kind was logical to you. Today has to be imposed upon the population, like I said, with a threat and a promise, a divine threat and promise. Otherwise, most people would disintegrate into primal behavior. And we see this in the sexual matters, where as the moral standards become lax, the sexual practices become more and more primal. They return more to a primal state, resulting in the decline of the family, the expendability of males, which were included because of the imposition of a moral code, a moral standard that placed a barrier on promiscuity. You can say that morality is particular to the culture, the civilization, the people that produce it, and that the environment necessitates certain moral codes. For instance, in today's world, with 7 billion people and no frontiers left and resource pressures, a certain moral code is more widespread. For instance, if you study the popular religions, they all share, in general, a certain moral code imposing upon people a certain shared mode of behavior. This is not accidental. It doesn't mean that this moral code is superior to any other. This means that it's necessary at this time for the survival of the species and for the integration of individuals within systems. Reciprocity lies at the heart of the moral code for anyone who can understand morality outside of emotion and self-interest and blind faith. Reciprocity based on cause and effect. What will be the effect of me doing something bad to somebody else? And how do I justify it? If I cannot, then I remain kind to this person. This is why in the popular religions there's always that threat. That is, the cost of a behavior is raised to such an extent as to prohibit it and make it less attractive to the individual. The individual, in other words, is controlled again by fear and by the promise of a reward, but also through the control of identity, self-identity, its association with an abstraction such as a nation state or an ideology. We get this sense of obligation towards the other, which we consider just a part of ourselves. So being kind to the other is in fact like being kind to oneself. This last method of population control demands a certain superficial awareness of self, unconsciousness, a lack of self-consciousness, a lack of identity. And this is why females are so easily integrated into systems, because they have such a superficial self-perception that they can become dominated and seduced by any identity which offers itself up as a superior one. That is, a woman always finds self through other, and because of this dependence she becomes much more likely to adhere to social rules and social moral standards. we can find in the decline of the modern moral code, particularly when dealing with the masses, a cultural impoverishment. That is, we now know that the Western civilization, or what we know as Western civilization, is in decline. And and we can see it by the impoverishment of the morals of our system. This increasing freedom, if you will, from the moral code, from law and order, does not mean that one is free from nature. In fact, it's a reversal back to a state of nature. It is a reversal from a civilized behavior to a primal behavior. And it's in fact a diminishment of order, which is the masculine entity, and a return to the feminine drive towards inclination, rather, towards entropy. So it's a diminishment. It's a form of decay.